When she entered clinging to her husband's arm, pretending not to hear a sound, no one guessed who was about to be tested. Her or all of us. Morning docket, New England City Court. Wooden benches, worn rail, quiet shuffle of people waiting on parking fines and speeding slips. Up front, an older vet with a hearing aid adjusts the tiny device behind his ear. Beside him, a woman with a cane rubs her knee. Two young parents trade off holding a diaper bag and a yellow envelope. The bailiff calls a name from the list, voice clear, routine. Cases glide past, nothing special. The side door opens. He arrives first. Mark Demian. Dark suit cut too sharp for this room, polished shoes, heavy watch that catches the overhead lights. Behind him, Laura, impeccably dressed, heels sure, no aids in sight. He takes her elbow as if guiding fragile glass, leans close, moves his hands in choppy mimicry of sign. It looks wrong, more flourish than language. Laura Demian, parking violations, the bailiff reads. Mark answers before the air settles. She's deaf, he declares, projecting. I'll speak for her. Laura keeps her gaze lowered, face arranged into distant calm. He flips out a business card toward the clerk. Demian Properties, embossed logo. We support your city, he adds, not quite smiling. We expect reasonable treatment. In the first row, the veteran's jaw tightens. He's seen people earn accommodations the long way. The clerk lifts the file. Several citations, same plate. Handicap space, no tag visible. Another handicap space with a placard. Fire lane by a clinic entrance. Ramp blocked at a medical building. Dates cluster. The judge glances down, then up. We'll address each, he says evenly. Mark squeezes Laura's shoulder. She can't read the signs without me, he tells the judge. It's discriminatory. These tickets punish her disability. Laura sits still, hands folded over a designer bag. When the bailiff repeats, Mrs. Demian, a touch softer, her head turns a fraction toward him before she remembers to go blank. The veteran notices. So does the woman with the cane. A small current of doubt moves through the benches, not cruel, alert. At counsel table, Mark's signing grows broader, theatrical sweeps that would block a real interpreter. Laura nods on cue, eyes not following any pattern. The judge studies them both, expression unreadable. All right, he says at last. If Mrs. Demian cannot hear, this court will provide what's needed. That is our duty. A short pause. Let us know where you're watching from, and we hope you enjoy the story. But first, his tone still mild, we're going to look closely at how and where that placard was used. The clerk readies the first video. The room quiets in a way that isn't boredom anymore. Mr. Demian, the judge says, you've asserted your wife is deaf. Have you filed any request for accommodation? Medical certification? Interpreter? Mark's mouth hardens. We assumed there'd be compassion, he answers. Paperwork is intrusive for her. She doesn't like reliving it. The clerk's fingers move over the keyboard. Nothing appears on the screen under ADA requests. Mark fills the gap with biography. I own Demian Development, he says, as if the room asked. We fund playgrounds, scholarships, the fall festival. We're not here to cause trouble. People in the benches know the name already. High-end condos, shuttered storefronts, lawsuits with small landlords who couldn't keep their leases. Laura used to show up at those ribbon cuttings. There are clips online of her hosting fundraiser galas, singing along at benefit concerts, chatting on podcasts. In every one, she's laughing at a joke, responding to music, turning when someone calls her name. No sign language, no interpreters hovering nearby. The clerk reads from the citations. First, Vehicle registered to Laura Demian in a designated disabled space. Placard displayed. Second, same plate in a fire lane by St. Agnes Clinic. Engine idling. Third, blocking access ramp outside Harbor Medical. Each line is dry. The pattern isn't. So she has a permanent impairment? The judge asks quietly. That's what the placard says. Mark lifts his chin. Issued several years ago, out of state. Chronic condition, he says. Our physician documented everything. Do you have that documentation with you? The judge asks. We can arrange it, Mark replies. Later. On the monitor, the clerk pulls the DMV file. The placard was issued across the border, never renewed. Physician contact tied to a now-closed clinic. No local verification. The vet in the front adjusts his hearing aid, the tiny click faint but clear. He watches Laura's face when the judge turns to her. Good morning, Mrs. Demian, the judge says, shaping the words distinctly, but in an ordinary tone. Her eyes lift to meet his, and she gives the slightest nod. Instinctive, human. Mark's hand tightens on her arm. She can't hear you, he cuts in. I told you. The judge notes something on his pad. No comment. Laura's fingers knot around her handbag strap. She isn't performing outrage. She looks cornered, like someone following a script she didn't write. In the second row, a woman murmurs, If she's truly deaf, we can get an interpreter. It's not this thing. The judge's voice stays neutral. We provide accommodations based on need, he says, and we protect disability access zealously. Because people in this room have fought hard for it. He nods toward the screen. We'll start with the clinic ramp video. We'll all watch, and then we'll return to this question of need versus convenience. The video from Harbor Medical fills the screen. No sound, just a concrete slice of morning. Laura's SUV glides into the blue-lined slot nearest the ramp. The disabled placard swings on the mirror. She steps out in heels, adjusts her coat, looks straight at the sign. Reserved parking. Permit required. $250 fine. Her mouth moves. Even without audio, it's clearly not confusion. Mark joins her, gestures vaguely at the pole, flicks his hand like brushing lint from a lapel. They walk off together, relaxed. The clip advances. A van with the clinic logo arrives, hesitates behind her parked car. Two staffers end up muscling a rolling chair down from the curb, lifting a patient's walker around the bumper. The ramp sits blocked the whole time. Lights come up. The judge regards the screen, then the couple. On this footage, he says, Mrs. Demian appears fully aware of where she is and what sign she's facing. Mark leans in. She reads lips. She trusts me when I say it's allowed. The judge doesn't argue. He lowers his voice just a shade, more intimate than official. Mrs. Demian, he says into the mic, if you hear me clearly, keep your eyes on me. At that moment, a heavy door thuds out in the hallway. Laura's head snaps toward the sound before she catches herself. A beat too late, her gaze slides back. No one laughs. The recognition that passes through the benches is quiet and hard. The vet with the hearing aid lifts himself up by the pew in front. Your Honor, he asks. The judge nods. I spent months getting this little machine, the vet says, touching the device. Appointments, tests, forms. Many folks never get that placard, even when they need it. If somebody is faking one, he doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. That spot at the clinic might be the difference between making it to the ramp or not. He sits. The room holds its breath. The judge's face doesn't sharpen. It steadies. We do not convict by reflex, he says. People's conditions vary. Startled reactions happen. He turns a page. But our duty is to line up claims with facts. He looks directly at Laura, speaking clearly but without edge. You responded to my greeting, Mrs. Demian. You turned at a sudden noise. That may mean you have residual hearing. It may mean you've been poorly advised. Mark starts to interject. Mr. Demian, the judge cuts in softly. I've heard you. He taps the file. We will now examine the authority for this placard and its use. If everything is legitimate, you'll have the chance to prove it. If not, we'll address that. He nods to the clerk. Pull the issuing records. The clerk's fingers move, nails clicking softly on the keys. Disabled placard number ending 317, she reads, issued 5 years ago in another state. Status, permanent. Certifying physician, Harborview Wellness Clinic. She scrolls. Clinic dissolved 3 years ago. No subsequent evaluations. No renewal in this jurisdiction. The printout lands on the bench with a papery sigh. An out-of-state permanent placard can be valid, the judge says evenly. But when records are this stale and usage this frequent, I need clarity. Mark slides a photocopy toward him. Here, he says quickly. Proof. The judge glances. It's a grainy scan. No recent seal. Thank you, he says, neither impressed nor dismissive. He turns to Laura instead. Mrs. Demian, he says, slower now but firm, if you require a sign language interpreter, this court will provide one at no cost. You do not need your husband to speak in your place. For a heartbeat, she meets his eyes. A small nod, almost grateful, escapes before Mark leans in. She's guessing from your mouth, he blurts. She does that. The judge writes a brief line on his pad. Respondent appears to follow spoken English. Further verification pending. He doesn't raise an eyebrow, doesn't announce victory. He lets the contrast sit. Let me be plain, he continues, voice carrying to the back. Those blue spaces and ramps are not conveniences. Misusing them is not a harmless workaround. It is the quiet theft of someone else's access. He looks past the Demians. Sergeant Wilkes, he says. The veteran with the hearing aid stands again, surprised to be called by name. Yes, Your Honor. You rely on accommodations? The judge asks. Yes, sir. Without them, some doors might as well be walls. Thank you, the judge says. You are exactly who these policies are written for. He turns back to Mark and Laura. Here's what we have so far, he summarizes, tone like a ledger. A long-expired paper trail from another state. A placard used to claim premium spaces. Video of blocked medical access. Behavioral cues inconsistent with total deafness. And a community member reminding us what genuine need looks like. He closes the file, palm resting on it. I won't brand you frauds on inference, he says quietly. But I won't ignore the pattern. From this point on, we separate a one-time mistake from a deliberate scheme. And we decide how to restore respect for the people who can't afford to have their spots treated as props. He signals to the clerk. Note potential misuse for DMV review. We'll address consequences after I hear from Mrs. Demian herself. Mrs. Demian, the judge says, eyes on hers, not on Mark. I'm asking you now. Do you hear me? Do you understand what's happening? Silence stretches. Mark leans in. Don't answer for her. The judge cuts, still calm. Laura's hand tightens on the strap. Yes, she says, barely above a whisper. Then, clearer. Yes, I hear you. The room doesn't move, but everything shifts. Mark hisses, Laura, like a threat. She doesn't look at him. I'm not deaf, she says. No drama. Just the truth, finally unclenched. The vet closes his eyes for a beat. The judge nods once. Tell me about the placard, he says. She exhales. After a car accident, I had vertigo. A friend of Mark's doctor signed forms. Said it was easier to mark it permanent. I got better. We never turned it in. A pause. Mark liked parking close, said it was one of the few perks we could control. And the story today? The judge asks. He said if anyone pushed, we'd say I couldn't hear, she answers, that nobody would press a disabled woman in open court. The shame in her voice is quieter than his bravado ever was, and heavier. Mark starts to object. The judge holds up a hand. You've had your turn. He addresses them both, but his words are for everyone. These spaces, these passes, exist so someone in real pain doesn't have to cross a football field of asphalt. So a parent with a chair, a vet with a cane, can reach a door. His tone hardens just a shade. You treated that as premium parking. You dressed convenience up as vulnerability. Sergeant Wilkes speaks with the court's permission. I waited 8 months for this aid, he says, touching the device. Lost paperwork twice. Home visits. Tests. That blue sign is not a luxury box. It's a lifeline. He sits. The point stands taller than he does. The judge returns to the bench notes. Here's what happens. He doesn't raise his voice. All violations involving disabled parking are set at the maximum penalty allowed. The fire lane and ramp obstruction fines likewise. This court will formally refer the placard to the DMV fraud unit for review and possible revocation. Additionally, conditional relief is available only through acts, not arguments. He looks at Laura. Within 30 days, that placard is to be surrendered. You will complete service hours at the Disability Resource Center, assisting with access, equipment, transport. No photos, no press. You will write personal letters to Sergeant Wilkes and to Harbor Medical, stating exactly what you did, without excuses, without borrowed piety. His gaze holds steady. Understand me. I'm not sanctioning you for needing help. I'm sanctioning the choice to counterfeit need so the powerful could park closer. The line lands like a bell. No one claps. No one needs to. He sets a review date. Comply, and I'll consider reducing the added surcharges. The base fines remain. Some lessons must stay on the ledger. Laura nods once, eyes wet but clear. When they rise, she walks ahead. Mark's hand reaches for her elbow. She doesn't take it. She comes back on a clear, cold morning by herself. No guiding hand, no staged fragility. Dark sweater, flat shoes, hair pulled back as if she didn't ask it for permission. She takes a place not in the front, not in the shadows, simply in line. Laura Demian, the clerk calls. She steps forward with a thin folder. The clerk reads into the record. Written confirmation from the state that disabled placard 3127 has been surrendered and canceled. Letter from the Disability Resource Center documenting completed shifts, escorting clients from cars to doors, positioning ramps, explaining access rules at outreach events. No media presence, no mention on any platform. Copies of letters to Harbor Medical and Sergeant Wilkes, each naming dates, locations, and the spaces she took that weren't hers. Center representative present? The judge asks. A woman in a polo stands. She showed up, she says. Listened to people talk about what that blue paint costs to earn. Helped them in and out of vans. She never once asked for her last name to be used. Sergeant Wilkes rises a little, bracing on his cane. I got her letter, he says. It didn't blame anybody else. That's more than we usually see. He nods toward Laura. Nothing sentimental. I accept. The clerk hands up one more memo. The city has begun a placard audit. Added warnings about misuse. Updated training for enforcement. The judge scans it. Good, he says. That's the right ripple. He turns to Laura. Do you understand now what was at stake? He asks. Yes, she answers. We weren't stealing a closer walk. We were stealing someone's chance to make it to the door. I chose to go along with that. I don't anymore. He studies her for a moment, then writes. Conditions fulfilled, he announces. The additional surcharges imposed as leverage are remitted. The underlying fines remain. Some history ought not vanish. Pen scratches. The sound is small, decisive. Then, more quietly, for her and for the room. This court will always honor real disability. The law can recognize damaged hearing. Choosing not to hear the people those spaces exist for, that is never protected. A few heads bow, not in worship, in recognition. Thank you, Mrs. Demian, he says. You may go. She turns away from the rail without looking for Mark. The doors open on the ordinary corridor, hum. Shoes on tile, a distant copier, someone laughing too loud at something that doesn't matter. The veteran adjusts his aid and watches her leave, satisfied that at least one stolen spot has been returned. Outside, blue lines keep their quiet meaning. Inside, the lesson lives where it needs to. In those who saw how close comfort came to dressing up as need, and chose, next time, to leave the ramp clear.